This is the Umbrella Academy on TV Podcast Industries, and we're discussing Umbrella Academy Season 1.
Our father never missed an opportunity to remind me that I was ordinary. A hard thing for a little girl to hear. If you're raised to believe nothing about you is special, if the benchmark is extraordinary, what do you do if you're not?
Welcome back, fellow Academy alumni. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we're discussing the Umbrella Academy Season 1. Yes, it's good to be here. You are all special to us. We are all special to you. And we wanted to do a quick recap of Season 1 of the Umbrella Academy ahead of Season 2, which launched later this month of July on Netflix. I am one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Brollies. I am one of your other hosts, John.
If people are brollies, what would you be? Polka dots? Would you be striped?
I'd be a nice rainbow brolly.
Yeah, that's quite cool. That's quite cool. Yeah, I've always liked the white umbrellas myself.
I'm much more partial to just kind of plain black, you know, that's just, it goes with everything.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Yeah. John was giving out while you were doing your intro there, Chris, about my use of Academy alumni as our fellow watchers for this season, or as our listeners for this season, the Academy alumni. I thought it worked.
I like it too. I like it too. I think fellow alumni, we could say. Okay. But I like fellow Brollies. It gives them all wacky edge to it.
Absolutely.
And that is what you are, our wacky edge.
Well, let's not get too carried away.
Exactly.
Let's not.
Yeah.
But if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to TV Podcast Industries, where we discuss your favorite TV shows in depth each episode as we go through. This is slightly different. We didn't cover Season 1 of the Umbrella Academy when it came out. We were covering some other topics at that point. But we are here ahead of the Umbrella Academy Season 2 to give you our thoughts on our rewatch of the Umbrella Academy. But if you haven't joined us before, you can pop over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe to us completely across all your favorite evil Academy, the corporation-led podcast catchers on any platform. Yes, we are on Spotify. We are on Google Podcasts. We're over on Apple Podcasts. That will show you I'm usually using Android because I could not think of the name there for a second. But we're anywhere you are, we typically are. If we're not, we're there. Just give us a shout and we'll make sure to try and get our podcast there.
Yes, and we're on all fruity podcast catchers.
Yes, fruity, yes, like Apple. Yeah, I like it.
But you can also join us over on facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, where we and our fellow alumni in this situation, our Academy alumni, if you will, where we all discuss, we put up spoiler posts where you can get in depth in any of the favorite shows that we cover. Of course, we love hearing your voices on this, and we particularly want to hear your feedback as we go into Season 2 of the Umbrella Academy. So you can go over to our website and leave us a voicemail, or you can send us an email, you know, those old school ones, at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. But gentlemen, I think we've given them all the details where they can find us, waxing lyrical about all their favorite shows.
Absolutely, yeah. We've hit 500 episodes. If this is your first time here in TV Podcast Industries, we have a lot of episodes to go back to. We just did our 500th episode there a couple of weeks ago. These episodes for Umbrella Academy, because this is sitting in between two series that we're doing, we're going to do them a little bit quicker than we normally would when we get into Season 2. The episodes themselves, we're going to be reviewing them, and we'll have them available a little bit early over on our Patreon group at patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries. And then we'll release them on our main feed on tvpodcastindustries.com after they've been out on our Patreon feed, so you can support us over there, get access to the episodes a bit early. The way we're going to cover the series for Season 2 when it starts coming out from July 31st, we're going to release episode number 1, our review of that episode, and then over that weekend we're going to release episode 2 and 3, and then we're going to split it up into 3 episode chunks until the end of the season, so we can close out the full season of Season 2 in easy to eat chunks, or easy to listen to chunks, I'd say. You don't eat podcasts, do you?
Well, you could. Everything is cake according to Twitter right now, so you can eat anything.
Yeah. Weird.
But we're really looking forward to this. So, gentlemen, before we kind of get into kind of what our thoughts were of season 1, why don't we give our listeners a kind of a brief rundown of what you knew about Umbrella Academy before?
Yeah, I was only minorly aware of Umbrella Academy, really through Chris. Chris is a big fan of the comic books originally, and he's the one that told me about the comic books before the show came out. I know he was really excited to watch the show when it came out on Netflix, and I know myself and John watched the series when it came out, but we had so much other stuff that we were covering on the podcast, we just couldn't fit it in. I did enjoy it the first time around, but I really enjoyed it much more the second time watching it through. I think I watched it over the course of maybe 2 days or 3 days this time, and just really caught the story much better, and it kind of sat with me much better because I wasn't watching loads of other things at the same time. I was just focused on Umbrella Academy for a couple of days. So I think it hit much better with me the second time around.
Yeah, I really loved it, this second time around. First time I liked it as well, but I think, I just wasn't into the rhythm, and I think watching it over 2-3 days, really enjoyed it. And, otherwise I actually knew nothing, about the Umbrella Academy other than seeing it on the shelves of, my local comic book supermarché. I wouldn't have known anything about the story. So, it was good from that point of view for me, because, just, getting to know the story and the characters was really good. So, I really enjoyed it.
I love that our American listeners are going to think that if they come to Ireland and go to a comic book shop, they're looking for a supermarché because we're so European over here in Ireland that we've named them supermarchés. I have also been reading the Umbrella Academy recently. It's on sale on Comixology at the moment, so I got the first 3 volumes of it, which is pretty much all of the story. I'm about halfway through, so I've read the first volume and then half of the second volume. So we'll talk a little bit about the differences between the show and the comics, I think, Chris, as we go into our discussion. But you are kind of the bigger fan of Umbrella Academy. You knew this before the show came out, right?
Yeah. So I'll be very kind of upfront. I was an emo kid. I probably still am.
Yep.
I'm not even going to lie. Jared Way, who is one of the writers on the Umbrella Academy, is also well known for being the frontman of My Chemical Romance.
I always forget the band name. Thanks, Chris.
And I was introduced to Umbrella Academy from that. So I was a fan of the music, and I have always been a fan of comics. So when this happened, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. It's either going to go the way of the dodo or it's going to be quite good. Yeah. Luckily, it's quite good. He seems to have turned his hand to comic books and especially the kind of narrative side quite well. I've read, I'd say 99% of all of the Umbrella Academy, the main 3 volumes, and then some of those more spin-off ones. I know there's a Free Comic Book Day one, a few like that I probably speed read as a kind of child and just don't remember. So I'm going to go back to them. Similar to you, Comixology was there and I went, ooh, I'll take that. Thank you very much. Just to kind of bring me back up to speed. And then, when I heard that Netflix were going to do this, had bought the rights to this, it was one of those, are we going to get a Japanese Spider-Man or Spider-Man 1970s kind of TV show where they'll maybe turn this into a procedural or what's going to happen? And surprisingly, it wasn't. We had season 1, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I will not say it's perfect. None of the shows we cover are perfect, but each aspect of them is usually quite well. And we'll go into some of the main differences later between the comics and the overall TV show.
None of the shows we cover are perfect except for Daredevil season 1, Watchmen, and Jessica Jones season 1. That's it, right? That's the only,
I think so.
The only perfect ones. We're going to do this again slightly differently because we're not going to be covering every individual episode as we go. We're not going to talk about each individual episode. If you do want a podcast that is a great podcast talking about each individual episode, I have to give a plug to my friend Rima's podcast, Strange Indeed, who covered each episode of Umbrella Academy when it came out last year. But check out Strange Indeed. I've been on the podcast a couple of times actually, talking about Black Mirror. So check that out as well. But yeah, Strange Indeed podcast did a really good weekly podcast or episode by episode podcast for Umbrella Academy season 1. So go check that out if you want an extra recap on season 1. But the way we're going to do this is we're going to talk through the overall storyline of season 1, give you a recap. Some of our wonderful listeners I know haven't rewatched the series coming into season 2. They just watched it last year and then may not be aware of exactly how the story ends. So what we're going to do is John's going to give a bit of a recap. We'll talk through it as we go. Chris, feel free to interrupt John as we all enjoy doing as we go. If there's any story points you want to clarify or any things you want to talk around, and then we'll talk around overall the story arc for the season.
Yes, and please interrupt because this is the mother of all synopses.
That's because I wrote it.
You haven't synopsized or summarized, I should say, a full season in one go. So take a deep breath.
That is true. I'm gonna feel like Stephen Fry, to be honest, sort of reading Lord of the Rings here. So okay. Settle back, fellow Jackanories, and we'll get into the synopsis.
Good stuff. John, would you like to give us the synopsis for Umbrella Academy Season 1?
Sure.
Excellent.
On October 1st, 1989, an inexplicable worldwide event. 43 extraordinary children were spontaneously born by women who'd previously shown no signs of pregnancy. Eccentric billionaire inventor Reginald Hargreaves adopted 7 of these children. When asked why, his only explanation was to save the world. These 7 children form the Umbrella Academy, a dysfunctional family of superheroes with bizarre powers. Their leader, number 1, also known as Luther, was fused with ape DNA to save his life. He was sent to the moon alone on a secret mission, but returned to lead when their father died.
In very mysterious circumstances.
Yes, well, that is the big question, isn't it, here, with the death of Sir Reggie, is was he murdered? Yeah. Or did he die of natural causes? And of course, the truth lies in a slightly different direction. Yeah. In that it is a suicide. He killed himself, and lots of different little threads kind of come together throughout the series, which is quite neat, actually.
Absolutely. I like to think of this as the Coulson from the Avengers, where Hargreaves killed himself to make sure that his team came back together and had something to focus on to get them all together. So that's how I think. But suicide wouldn't really be allowed in the Marvel universe, so they had to get a bad guy to kill Coulson in the Marvel universe to push the Avengers together here. Hargreaves kills himself to get his kids to join forces again. So not sure whether it worked. Well, it did towards the end, but I'm not sure whether he had enough impetus in there to get them all back together. That's part of the function of season 1, isn't it, really? That the only person that thinks there's foul play, or the only person that thinks that something to be investigated is Luther, and everybody else kind of just goes, Dad's dead, off we go.
I think the great thing is that he did get them back together, but in their lovely dysfunctional way. So I that's what I kind of like. They were drawn back to the academy, but then effectively kind of just really decided that each one of their brothers and sisters were kind of just as bad as when they left, really. And so they kind of went off and did their own thing, sometimes competing against another one of the 7, and sort of all the time with Vanya being sort of just kind of put down, really. So, I kind of like that, they came together in a dysfunctional way.
Exactly.
Yeah, they very much are a different take on what would happen if you literally had Charles Xavier and the X-Men, the original 5 X-Men. You bring them in as teenagers. What will happen over time? And this is, I say grounded in reality, but I meant more a realistic take on, if you take 7 children in and adopt them and train them to be superheroes, this is what will probably happen in the future. Yeah,
exactly. John, do you want to continue on with our...
Yes, on to number 2. Diego, a man who can bend his weapons in any direction and uses it to fight crime around the city. When his former girlfriend, Detective Patch, is murdered, the police he once worked with turn on him. But Diego wants to avenge her death. Number 3, Allison, has used her ability to make any rumour come true to become a famous actress. But when her husband catches her using her powers to control their child, he files for divorce. Allison returns to the family and reconnects with her previous crush, number one.
Which is always a weird thing.
That is really, yeah.
But I get it. They're not blood related, but...
Yeah, that is true. And also just because he's called number one, having a crush on a previous number one, it's kind of like, she keeps her toilet stuff as souvenirs.
Well,
it could
at least
be worse. It could be a number two.
Yeah, souvenir.
It could have been number two. Yeah, that would have been far worse.
That is true. It is a little weird. That's the thing. You constantly have to come back and say, actually, none of them are related. This is more of, as you say, Chris, the Foster family. So it is fine that Allison and Luther have got a bit of a thing going on.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite cute, their younger selves, because there's quite a lot of flashbacks in this as well. Yeah. You see that kind of blossoming sort of youthful romance between the two. It certainly adds something. I found actually that all these flashbacks really added to the depth of the characters in their adult form, and that was something I really liked about this season 1 for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you can see from Hargreaves' reaction, this is absolutely something he does not want. He wants to treat this whole idea of the Umbrella Academy as a business, almost as an army, some kind of military force. There's no fraternization amongst the troops, kind of thing is his attitude the minute he finds them. But I do like just the way it comes back to that. You know, they had their kind of pseudo date that got broken up by Hargreaves as kids, and then later in life they come back to exactly the same room and kind of reenact the date or finish off the date. You know, I love even just the fact they check the drink cans to make sure they're still in date before drinking them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fun little touches like that kind of work throughout the season to bring those flashbacks really into part of the story. We see so often with flashbacks on these shows, it's pretty much a guarantee the Netflix show you're going to get a full episode of flashbacks. But we see so often that those inform the audience what's happening with the character in the past, but don't really sit within the narrative of the show. Whereas with Umbrella Academy, they're really quite well tied in with what's happening all the way through the series.
Yeah, I did like the awkwardness of Luther, actually. The fact that he has this ape DNA. So, you know, you really... He's got this misproportioned body where like his torso and his arms are just like the Incredible Hulk's in size. They're massive, yet his head is quite normal, and so are his legs, really. And you see the younger self where he, is a sort of a regular proportioned, human being. But I like in that flashback of the romance where they're trying to get back into their little sort of indoor tent that they've created, and he's just so huge with his massive broad shoulders and ape arms that it's all just knocking over the place. He's very awkward. I kind of like that because I did feel that Luther was one of the hardest to kind of like in a sense, just because of how he's very just sort of focused and driven. Like he doesn't really, because he's this kind of de facto preordained leader, or that's what he's put himself in, then it does feel like he doesn't really listen to many people other than Allison, and he's pretty grim with Vanya, to be honest, in terms of how he treats her. So he is a toughie now, along with old Sir Reggie, to kind of to get to like of the characters.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So two things on Luther. One, he was very much supposed to be the Cyclops Captain America.
Yeah.
So he's the de facto leader who doesn't question, does what he's told. And then the Captain America part is very much the Boy Scout mentality. So when you mix those two together, you see in Luther this character who doesn't question, follows orders, is a yes sir, yes man. And this is the downside of this, which is he doesn't follow in for his crush.
Ah, okay. So that's why I'm not a Captain America fan. That's why I prefer
That could
Tony
be it.
Stark.
It is. It's the reason why a lot of people don't like Superman as well. It's that idea that he's standing up for the rights of everybody, and that doesn't make him that massively interesting of a character.
Yeah.
He's following orders and he's going along the way. And that's what happens with his belief system. Really falls apart later in the series when he finds out about that mission that he was sent to the moon to sit there for 4 years sending back reports that were never even read when they were returned. You know, that's when his whole system falls apart, and you have that kind of moment of him going completely wild on the streets, you know, completely changing his personality to kind of no longer be the leader of this team, you know. So, so that's his big downfall. But some interesting ones. Also, just quickly to just mention about Allison, that idea of her superpower completely destroying her life, because I do think she even says it in a line herself as a character, you know, if any parent had this superpower to be able to tell their children, just go to sleep, dear, you don't need to worry about that anymore. You don't need to keep pressing. Just go to bed and go to sleep. I've heard a rumor that you're tired. Absolutely every parent would use that, but it turns out that this has destroyed her life, because her husband probably rightfully realizes if she's going to use it for those little things like getting her child to sleep, she's probably going to use it for other things in the future. And her husband maybe also wonders whether he is in love with her or whether she heard a rumor that he's in love with her. So that's not really explored too much, but there is that kind of idea that if you have this proper super ability, and you use it, then your life could fall apart. So I kind of like that little background to Allison's character as well.
Oh, I love her I would 100% use that. I'm not even a parent, and I would still use that. I'd be like, I heard you're tired, to myself, looking in a mirror. I'll also just kind of one stickler point that I have with Luther, just bring it back very quickly. In the comic books, he's not injected with ape DNA. Yeah. In the comic books, he essentially, his body dies after a mission, and his head is transplanted onto a gorilla's body.
Very good.
So he has a gorilla's body in the comic books, and that's one of the more fun aspects. And I understand why they did it this way, but can you imagine, because they have such an amazing character like Pogo, they could have done it. It's just, it was a choice. Yeah. I get it. It was also still a stickler point for me where I was like, I wanted to see the gorilla body. But anywho, moving swiftly on. John, do you want to take us on to number 4?
Ah, yes, number 4. Klaus is plagued by dead people. He sees them all the time. He uses every drug available to him to quell the voices in his head. But when he meets his true love, Dave, on a mistaken excursion back in time to Vietnam, he returns broken-hearted. Yes.
Poor Klaus.
Klaus.
We are big fans of the actor, Robert Sheehan, here at TV Podcast Industries. We love him. He's been so good. I think we first came across the character on Misfits. He played pretty much the character.
The person.
That's right. True. We came across the person, Robert Sheehan, on Misfits. He played a character on there who is very fast talking, very obsessed with drugs and sex. He's much younger than the Klaus character in this show. But every scene that he's in, he totally stole the show to the point where basically he left it to become a big actor in Hollywood and a big actor on other TV shows. So Robert Sheehan is eminently watchable in everything that he's in. I definitely say check him out. He did a great drama in Ireland as well, called Love Hate, where just to show his dramatic skills. Check that out as well. But he's just been so good. And I think in this show, again, he steals almost every scene that he's in. He's absolutely great. And I do like that they make him the clown for the first half of the season. And then they do have a really interesting side story with him, showing his growth when he goes and meets the man of his dreams, Dave, in Vietnam. And he seems a very changed character after that year spent back in history as well. So he's probably the one I'm most intrigued to see how it will change him for season 2, I think is what's in my head for him.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love Robert Sheehan. I'm not a love-hate fan. I can see why people like it. It's just not a me show. But yes, I was kind of enthralled by the character in Misfits. Yeah. He is an Irishman through and through. There is a season 1 recap done by himself, number 5, by number 3 and Hazel, and his Irish comes out.
Oh, of course.
Oh boy, he leans into it so hard, but it's so good.
Yeah. So he does a kind of generic American accent in this show. And I think what they get away with all of the characters really in the show is all 7 of these characters are from different corners of the world brought together under one roof. So you can kind of excuse them if their accent isn't the perfect American accent, even though they did grow up in that house, because they would have been pulled from different corners of the world. So it's kind of an interesting little way out that they have.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, Klaus is, I think, one of my 4 favorite characters in this. I mean, but he is just, I love the irreverence. I love the wackiness. I love the drug taking that he's doing. You know, he's also pretty, put upon by Luther. And I think that kind of relationship, you know, his view, because he's taking all these drugs, he's taking the alcohol to sort of just silence these voices in his head. He's just not listened to, because everything is seen as potentially it's another joke by Klaus, or he's trying to steal something. And I think that sort of the both Luther and Klaus just sort of banging off one another is really good. But he does also effectively bang off every one of the other Academy members. But he does also form, I think, you know, at least throughout the season, in the early to middle parts, he's the character that has the most empathy with his brothers and sisters. He realizes that they're all completely dysfunctional because he's dysfunctional. And as a result, you know, it has a nice moment with Diego. And I think because he has his brother Ben, number 6, who is there with him in spirit. And I know that's slightly jumping ahead in the synopsis, but I think, you know, he really kind of feels like he's the heart of this family, because he's so empathetic because of his power to see and commune and I suppose ultimately use dead people. I mean, we see the true extent of his power by episode 10, which is really, really cool. And also he goes on this journey, very up and down, to come off the drugs and the alcohol, and then he's back on them, then come off, and then back on them. And certainly
go back in time, meet his true love,
and with Dave,
drugs,
so it's a great arc. I love him. I love him in the bubble bath. I love him sat on the bus with the with the time travel briefcase, with just the towel around him, and he's kind of opening his legs to the lady on the other side of the bus. There's just these really nice touches, of just cheekiness from, Klaus, which if you see Misfits, you know, Robert Sheehan is absolutely adept at doing that cheeky, sort of naughty, mischievous kind of chap.
Yeah,
dude.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this time, seeing it a second time, definitely the first time, I'm sure I had the same observations, but coming back to it, seeing it the second time, I think the realization that you have with his character is that you kind of like him to begin with and go, yeah, cheeky chappy, he's loving the drugs, party animal kind of thing. But when you realize that moment, kind of episode 3 or 4, I think, where they show you what his father put him through to make him not afraid of
that is true.
The voices in his head, putting him into a crypt and locking him in there for hours on end with these disembodied voices and ghosts screaming into his head. You kind of realize that this character is really pushing himself to the edge because he wants to get away from it. Like it's a very serious character arc that he's going through, you know. He is definitely a heavy drug user and a heavy alcohol user, but it's to block this connection that he has with the other side, effectively. So I really like that.
I think I would have number 1 and number 2'd myself without in that crypt, for sure.
Without a doubt. Going from one of your favorite characters to another, John. Next up is probably the central characters of the story, isn't it?
Yes, on with the synopsis. Number 5 left before they all got names. He was testing his teleportation powers and got stuck in the future after the world ended. Unable to return, he took a job with the Handler as a temporal assassin, traveling through time to kill people through history that will disrupt the timeline. When he breaks free of his mission in order to save the world, the company sends 2 hitmen, Cha-Cha and Hazel, through time to kill him. Yes. Aidan Gallagher, who plays number 5. I just loved this character and how he brought sort of, so like, he's what? He's about,
He's 58.
He's 58, but he inhabits the body of what, a 13 or 14 year old, still in the school shorts and the blazer. Yeah. but he has an amazing talent to just bring age to that kid. It's just really, really good. I mean, I have no idea how old in real life Aidan Gallagher is, but like, if that didn't work, or if that wasn't able to work, if you just felt you were being talked to by a child, you know, without the gravitas that he brings to it, it just would not have worked. This is a really important sort of casting, really. Yeah. And I loved, never seen Aidan Gallagher in anything before, but I just loved the whole feel of his character. I loved how he treated his brothers and sisters. He is kind of the intellectual of this family. He doesn't really give too much credence to kind of the other Academy members. You know, Luther is just kind of this physical beast. Diego is the killer. And, you know, he's very, he's just really, really good. I think just his performance alone throughout the whole of this season is just fantastic. Yeah. And, I love the fact that he carries a mannequin, around with him. And that's his relationship that he's had, through his traveling across time and space. That has been his companion, is this mannequin. And I love that he brings her back to the clothes shop that he had got her from from the ruins of the apocalypse, and asks the lady who's putting the clothes on the rail to kind of get her a new set of clothes and put her up. And just
likes polka dots.
Yeah, really, really nice little touch. I loved number 5.
Yeah, number 5 for me is just fantastic, because it's a blink and you'll miss it, but he ages. And when we first see him come through that portal, he ages from the very old man he is back to the 7-year-old, 10-year-old body. I can't remember the exact age he's supposed to be, but I
think he's 12. I think they say 12. Somewhere that he's about 12. Yeah.
But it's just that kind of, what if you were a 70-year-old man in that body? Yeah. So he's the grizzled, he's the world weary adventurer, time traveler stuck in a kid's body.
Yeah.
And we see that in one of the best scenes still in my life, when he comes the episode where he goes to get a coffee. He's just back. He's there getting a coffee, and he's attacked by the commission. And the company essentially is trying to bring him back into the fold, and we see his teleportation powers in full effect.
Absolutely.
But you see his teleportations in full effect with the body of a 12-year-old, which is just fantastic. He teleports onto the counter to stab a guy in the back of the neck. And it's just that kind of like, it's a mix of Puck from like the Canadian X-Men Alpha Force, that small dwarf guy who was quite nimble. And then you've also got a bit of Nightcrawler in there. So Nightcrawler just bouncing from one person to the other, doing all these things. Yeah. And then you've also got this James Bond-esque kind of secret agent, gun-toting man, but just in this kid's body. And it's just that, it's the same, like, forever. Later in the series, where we see him having coffee over breakfast, and he's there sitting talking to Klaus, like, pulls up the kind of chair. Now tell me your problems. It's that kind of very granddad thing. And it's just like, the actor pulls it off amazing.
It really does. And as both of you said, just the show really hangs on this character. If he hadn't done as good a job, the story kind of would fall apart, because it's so important to believe that this is an older person in his body. But I do love that they have the idea that while he is someone that has lived this life and has all the experience and has more knowledge than everybody else, and he's kind of telling all the rest of the members of the Academy, don't worry, when you grow up and get older, you'll understand what I believe. What I do like about him is that he has had a mental break, because he's been on his own for the whole time, and that's why he's carrying around the mannequin with him the whole time, is because he's got that mental break. But I love the flashes of his life as an assassin. Definitely. Traveling through time. I think that's such a cool story, and to know that he did it for 38 years, something like that, is the number that they gave. So he's been traveling back and forth through time, growing older and older, on these missions until he decides that he's going to leave and stay finally because he's made it back home to his own time.
I like the fact that the one that the mission he leaves to come back to the present is to kill the person who's going to assassinate JFK. That's just kind of a nice little touch. That's when he figures out the timeline and how to do it, and actually he gets his calculations slightly wrong, hence why he comes back as in the child's body. So I kind of really like that, and I think there is the whole he goes for the coffee, and that's where we get to meet Agnes, the donut lady. But he does a really kind of sort of just it's kind of really sarcastic grin to her when she asks, "Is this your father?" to a tow truck driver, and then he gets attacked, and I just thought he played it so well,
but even his passing out drunk after drinking the entire bottle of vodka, kids playing drunk, like you can't really teach that to a 12-year-old. But he plays it really well. He plays it like a person who's probably done that once or twice, and you do see moments with him in the future where he says, "Yeah, I know I drink a lot," where he definitely has drank to excess before in the show. And to see this kid pull it off, is really good. Like, it looks like some people that I've met, heavily drunk, after a night on the batter, as we'd say in Ireland.
I think what's good about his character as well, ultimately his whole storyline is around this impending apocalypse and who needs to be stopped, or how do they need to change it so that the Earth isn't sort of destroyed effectively, or mankind and the world isn't wiped out as he has seen it. And this kind of links slightly with Sir Reginald Hargreaves, the father, this explanation to save the world. And there's a lot about whether he knew that something was happening, and what would happen to it. And we do see an interesting flashback as well with Reginald Hargreaves, where he is, speaking with his wife in a bed. I think she's dying, and their race is leaving their planet. So I'm assuming he's an alien, and he arrives in Victorian period in America, and sets up and sees an umbrella, and that's part of the opening. But he is from another world, hence all these with Pogo, I presume with the android mother, with the DNA being used in Luther, but that he seems to have some premonition or knowledge that this world needs to be saved in some way. So always kind of linking back to number 5, who for the first half of this season is trying to stop this apocalypse on his own. The others just don't believe him, or they're too worked up around their father's death, and certainly Luther trying to find out who maybe murdered him. Diego is doing his detective work, and so he kind of goes off, and it's only really by midway through the season that he's really able to get them all on board that something needs to be done, because Cha-Cha and Hazel, who these are my third and fourth favorite, are trying to kill him. They attack the academy. The rest of the members don't know who they are, what it's all about. But this, he is the main driver here about finding out who they need to stop. And all they've got is this clue of a false eye that he found at the site of the destroyed academy. And so, he's absolutely central to this, and to knowing more about the company, and with the handler played by Kate Walsh. And, he plays off the company and the handler through the season to try and find out more. And in fact, sends word to have Cha-Cha and Hazel kill each other. So, I thought it was just really a great story. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I actually just like the interplay between just those story concepts that we've got there. We've got a guy who's been in the future and knows that the world ended, but he doesn't know how it ended. All he has is an eyeball to track down how everything ended. That's his whole mission, is how did it all end? All I've got is this eyeball with a serial number on the back of it. Then we've got these kind of time cops that are being sent back in time to murder him, but have no idea why and aren't given any mission details as to why it is they're supposed to kill this guy. So I love that everybody's so uninformed as the series begins. And as the series goes on, they eventually start to fill in the details around their missions and why they're supposed to be doing what they're doing. So I think that's a really good story trick that they have in here, that nobody's really sure what actually happened and what's supposed to happen, but everybody gets there eventually towards the end of the series. So I think that's really a really interesting trick they put in here.
Yeah, for me, it was basically putting everyone on equal footing, including the audience. Mm-hmm. So typically in a lot of shows, the characters already know their motivations. Mm-hmm. In here, the characters don't know the motivations. So we're on a journey with the characters. And it's one of the reasons I really enjoyed this particular adaptation, is because everyone learned everything at around the same time. There are some question marks that say we know about number 5 that other people don't know. And it does do the usual Netflix bit, which is leave us on certain cliffhangers or crazy, wacky endings. But majority of the time, things are explained away pretty quickly in the following or preceding episodes. Yeah.
I mean, even the eyeball actually, in the end, doesn't amount to much. In fact, it is just by association with Vanya's boyfriend called Leopold, who loses his eye at one stage in this, and so everyone's there going, it must be his eye. Exactly. So there's kind of a lot of red herrings thrown into this mix as well, and I do like that Cha-Cha and Hazel, or at least certainly Hazel, through his donut love crush of both donuts and the lady that serves him those donuts, Agnes, kind of ultimately wants to get out of the company and stop being a hitman. Mm-hmm. He does this really kind of great downtrodden workman who's like, what do we get? They used to put us up in nice hotels. Now we're having to share a room in single beds in this dumpy kind of motel. Mm-hmm. I just really liked that, and of course,
I think any of us that have travelled for work for a long period of time, there are definitely those conversations of, the subsistence has gone down. My day rate is lowered. They're putting me in worse hotels than they used to put me in beforehand. It used to be the fun part of the job was all the extra benefits. Yeah. Now there's no benefits at all. And all I'm getting is pressure to deliver even more than I used to have to deliver, I really like that the part of Hazel's character. It's really cool.
Definitely. And of course the masks that they have are really nicely iconic and slightly freaky. Yeah. Kind of reminds me a bit of the pig air balloon from the Pink Floyd.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Just
inflatable pig.
Yeah, that kind of vibe to it, I suppose. But
they are iconic. They are definitely from the comic books as well. They're front and center. That's how the characters are introduced. And I'm not too sure, because I'm not there yet, but I'm not too sure whether they reveal their faces in the comic book. They may at a later stage, but it's the masks that are so iconic as they arrive for the first time. They're wearing the 2 masks. I love how they did the touch in this of when they burned down one of the buildings. It's the ear of of Cha-Cha's mask that's left behind, and that's how the police are trying to track them, from this ear of the mask from the future. That's quite a fun little touch. Let's get back to the synopsis though, because I know there's still a fair bit to cover of the season.
Yeah, sure. Number 6, Ben, who died mysteriously before the Academy broke up, but he is tethered to his ghost-whispering brother Klaus and doomed to watch him spiral into addiction. I think Ben really adds to Klaus's character, and it's great that they have that kind of rapport. We see Klaus being sort of tortured by Hazel and Cha-Cha, where first of all he's absolutely loving the torture, dare I say it, which is really funny, and then it starts to get a little serious from Hazel and Cha-Cha, and he begins to get to see not only Ben but also more people, and I kind of like the fact that the spirit of Ben is there, even though we don't know quite how he died, but certainly Ben's power was seemingly to allow octopus sort of limbs to come from his belly and effectively to, cause a lot of damage and havoc.
What's his name in the comic, Chris?
I'm not prepared to say that.
I'm going to say his name.
Okay,
Can we not say his name?
Yeah, go on. Because I don't know.
His name is the Horror in the comic, which I just love because it is what would happen when the cops turned up after to catch the bad guys. Effectively, that the Umbrella Academy fought in the bank. You know, I'm sure the first thing they would have said when they walked into that room where the last of those men were dispatched by Ben, I'm sure it would have been, "Oh my God, the horror," because the whole room is just covered in blood. You know, even in that final episode, that moment where you have Ben being channeled through Klaus and taking out all of the members of the company, I think was just such a cool moment.
That was very cool.
Got the coolest superpower, but it obviously got him into some dire straits in the past.
Yeah, it's not just tentacles as well. It's basically his stomach, or he is a portal to extra-dimensional horror kind of dimensions where everything
that
can come
makes
out.
More sense.
And in this adaptation, it is kind of seen as just Japanese tentacle porn kind of wet dream. It's just coming all out of him and destroying everything. I do like how they first kind of suggest it is, because in that bank scene where they go, "Ben, it's your turn," or sorry, number 6 is your turn, and he's like, "Do I have to?" And then he go in and it's just like close the door and just blood splattering everywhere and people screaming. It's just a fun way, because when all the rest of them are kind of marched outside by Reginald, he's there covered in blood.
Exactly.
That's how the rest of us
Great little touch. Yeah. Ben is the character that we see least, obviously, in the show. He's someone that we see as kind of, it's almost like Klaus's sponsor, being there at all times when Klaus is getting worse and worse in the drugs. You have him talking in the background going, "Maybe you should give this up, mate," you know, which I think is a nice touch for Ben's character. Nice and really helpful for Klaus's character to see what he's going through. And I'm really hopeful with the way the season ended with, Klaus channeling Ben through him, that means we're going to see a lot more of Ben in season 2. I'm hoping for.
Absolutely. I like that, actually, that idea that Ben is also Klaus's sponsor. I hadn't really thought of it like that, but it absolutely is. And that's a really great way of describing it, which I really like as well, because I think the two of them work really nicely together. And of course, through just having Ben there, there's almost this realization of what Klaus can actually do when he's not on narcotics or alcohol, and that, you know, he's able to play patter cake with Ben at one stage, and then ultimately leading to Klaus being able to, as you say, sort of use Ben through his power of being able to talk and use dead people in the real world. So it's a really good kind of little relationship throughout this whole season.
Very cool. Very cool.
But from speaking of people with powers to someone without.
Yes, on to number 7, also known as Vanya, who isn't special, not special at all, only she's the most powerful of the group. When Professor Hargreaves discovers how powerful she is, he forces Allison to hide Vanya's powers from her completely. When Vanya meets Leopold Peabody, she finally learns to believe in herself and finds out all about her powers. She can channel sound into powerful shockwaves. But Leopold's motives are his own. He was born on the same day as the 7, but had no powers, and an abusive father who pushed him to patricide. When confronted by the team, Vanya lashes out at her sister, slitting her vocal cords and removing her ability to influence anyone else ever again. But when Vanya learns of Leopold's plot, she destroys him for his betrayal and hunts down the rest of her family and destroys their home, the Academy.
Lots of destruction from Vanya once she learns her powers. I really love that part of the story. I think Ellen Page was probably the most recognizable actress in this show. She really was the center poster.
Well, Pogo. Come on, he was the Planet of the Apes, Planet of the Apes 2, 3, started alongside Charlton Heston. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, he was in quite a lot of big things before, but no, Ellen Page really was the headline actress in the show, and I'm sure everybody could have guessed there was something about her, but for those first 3 or 4 episodes where everybody's going, you're a loser, you're useless, you have nothing special about you. You're like, Ellen Page, why did she take this role to just sit and play violin, and sometimes play violin badly because everybody's telling her, you're not very good at that, you should give it up, you know?
Yeah.
I think, is there something going to happen here? But to realize she is the most powerful of the Umbrella Academy, and her father did something as horrible as he did by forcing that memory down deep inside her by using one of the other kids' powers is a really good twist on the story, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Vanya's arc actually, it is, it's deeply connected in with number 5, around the apocalypse, because ultimately she is that vehicle for, the apocalypse. And the arc, I think probably by about 2/3 of the way through, that's when I was starting to think, oh, is it Vanya? As I say, there's a lot of red herrings, which is quite kind of nice, I think. And it's simple, but I thought it really worked. I thought it was really neat. And I just liked how, again, just this dysfunctional family drama, to be honest, between all these different members of the Umbrella Academy, these foster brothers and sisters, just how they really just played against one another all the time. And I really felt sorry for Vanya because, all the decisions or choices made by the rest of the family, or even just calling a family meeting, to interact with her just seemed pretty bad. I mean, even Allison, who tries the most, it just still felt like it came out the wrong way. I was kind of getting frustrated with all the other family members going, why can you not speak to her like a human being? And you just really felt sorry, for Vanya. And then you see what her dad did, and, for better or for worse about it, her powers kind of sort of turn evil, for want of a better description. I don't think inherently she's not, because you see it in the remorse that she has when she lashes out at Allison, cutting her vocal cords. And even though that's done out of a place of almost frustration for herself, that no one is listening to her, no one is believing her, she's been treated like this, like 3-year-old still. She's still deeply distraught by what's happened. But again, it's like it's almost like she has anger management issues, I think.
Without a doubt.
And that's the problem.
Like, I know you're saying that she regrets what she did to Allison, but it doesn't stop her killing Pogo, who's been massively supportive for her just because he knew
exactly
in the next episode. Have to say, brilliant touch and use of flashbacks in episode 9, where she's walking through the academy, and we follow along with her. Is it episode 9 or 10, where she's walking through the academy and seeing flashbacks to every member of the Umbrella Academy and their versions of telling her she's useless, as she explodes each of their rooms in the house, eventually taking down the Academy itself. Nice. Thought it was such a great use. Like, we've kind of joked many times about Netflix's use of flashbacks in a show, and to tie it in so well, as I mentioned earlier on, to tie it in so well to the show itself, in that way in episode 9 or 10, I think was just so good.
Yeah. Oh, like the prison scenes in this are just chilling. Like when the scene before she breaks, just before she explodes the prison, and where you see, as you said, those flashbacks and the revelation of that Rumour used her Rumour powers on her own sister. The whole thing for me on this is it is a bit of a family drama, but it's this really dark take on it. In that, as you said, so like we've all had that moment where with your sibling where you're like, oh, you're just so annoying, or you've all said something quite mean in the heat of a moment to your sibling.
That would have probably been the mildest, Chris.
Yeah. And then it's just, but like that, these flashbacks, like if you were able to remember each specific detail of that. And yeah, for me, when she takes down Pogo, that was a moment where I went, does she ever come back from that?
Yeah.
And that's a question you will always ask.
Yeah. That was pretty brutal, but it is also, when Allison's coming into the concert hall, because she's playing this concert, and as her powers develop, as she's playing this music, you can see she's getting whiter and whiter. It's like this white heat developing, this kind of really powerful energy building up in her. But she sees Allison and she smiles. They both have that connection. But unfortunately, again, the rest of the family have decided to ignore Allison.
Yep.
And try and sort of attack her flanks to try and stop her. So to stop her playing the music where she's drawing her power from. And, and then it all kind of goes south pretty quickly. But I think maybe with that, I should move on to our final bit of the synopsis.
Well, yeah, just we close out the season with the end of the synopsis. Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. Yeah.
And so, as the team tracks Vanya down, assassins Hazel and Cha-Cha end their relationship. Hazel runs off with his donut-dealing girlfriend Agnes, and Diego confronted Cha-Cha for murdering Inspector Patch. Diego lets her live, but it might not be a long life. The siblings end Vanya's cataclysmic performance by knocking her out, but Vanya's destructive force is deflected at the moon, sending meteors back to destroy Earth, creating the apocalypse they've been trying to prevent. With nothing left to do, number 5 uses his time travel powers to pull the entire family out of time and avoid the apocalypse. So yeah, they don't actually stop the apocalypse. They just do a quick shimmy to the left to dodge it, which is interesting.
I kind of like the joke of that. Like it's kind of well, either we could stay here and all die, or else we could use your powers and jump out of here. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. So, and also Hazel with Agnes also manages to escape. I think, I don't know, might be wrong, but it looks like he has managed to get hold of one of the few remaining time travel briefcases from the handler who he has shot previously, because he was holding Agnes as hostage for Hazel and Cha-Cha to go and protect Vanya, take down the rest of the academy.
The handler was, she was holding.
Yeah. So I think he's got her briefcase, time travel briefcase, and has sort of time traveled out of there as well. Other than the rest of the world, I think it is Cha-Cha that I don't really know about, because she was still in the theatre. And we don't know what's happened to her. I don't think she escaped, but maybe she had something up her sleeve.
She leaves the theatre, and we last see her on a payphone, trying to call the commission to try and pick her up, and they don't answer. And then we see the street enveloped with flames.
Exactly.
So I do believe this is the end of Mary J. Blige.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's really sad, because she was so good in the show. She really good.
She was really good.
But you never know. A time travel plot, we've seen it so much in Star Trek. We've seen it so much in so many other shows. So once time travel is involved, where did they jump to? Did they jump before the whole world was destroyed? So, again, Cha-Cha is destroyed as the entire rest of the world was destroyed. So it's very unlikely that they've just jumped forward in 5 minutes and the whole planet is gone. So I presume they've gone back to a time before Cha-Cha died. So
I think that's it. They're pragmatic. That they just decided we need to fight another day. Whereas Captain America would have been stoic and probably just gotten turned to dust.
Nah, he would have found a way out, definitely. What did you think of this? Just the end of that story. Let's close this out. What did you think of how this moment ended? Were you surprised?
Yeah.
Let me say, I was surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Without just asking you guys the question, I was very surprised by this thing of the rebounding of the power from Vanya smacking off the moon. And I love that. I think it's 5 is it that turns around, or is it Klaus that turns around and looks up and goes, "Uh-oh."
Klaus,
as pieces of the moon start to crack off and come back to the earth. I think it's a really interesting touch to close out the season on this massive cliffhanger. But I thought it was very funny and really surprising to see that they didn't save the world
absolutely.
from the apocalypse. So.
Yeah, I think that was another sort of great thing for me from this, was that they didn't just save the day. They couldn't, because time was against them, as well as their sister, and they have to live to fight another day. So I don't know. I've not read the comics, so I don't know what season 2 will bring as to whether that is going to be them still trying to find a way to prevent that apocalypse so that the rest of the world can live, and not just the 7 of them and Hazel and Agnes and the the commission. There seems to be quite a lot of people in the commission as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting, or whether maybe something like that. Sorry, the company, not the commission, or whether there's something that's resolved relatively quickly and there's new areas that they're exploring. But as I say, there's obviously this alien planet anyway where Reginald Hargreaves has come from. So there's there's these whole touches that the universe that the Umbrella Academy is in is much bigger, with the company and with the time travel and with the alien planets.
Yeah, absolutely.
This completely took me surprised because it is different from the comic books.
Yeah.
It's a lot different. So in the comic books, and I know we'll discuss the differences later. But for me, I was not expecting this. I was expecting it to be wrapped up. And what I find even more shocking was that they did not know they were going to get a second season on this. So it's ballsy to kind of go, do you know what? We're not going to save the universe. We're going to live to fight another day, and we're going to destroy the world. And fingers crossed we get a second season.
Yeah.
So it's ballsy. Like, that's the best way of putting it. It's just like, it's kind of like the writers here just went, you know what? Here you go. Whoop, boom. We're going to put our big comic tentacle out onto the table and go, we're going to leave it like this, and people are going to want a second season. Exactly.
How do you feel about that, Chris? Because I know that's something that when we talk about episode by episode on shows that aren't confirmed for a second season, this is something that's been a little bit of a bugbear for you on other shows before. So obviously knowing that in 2 weeks' time we're going to get the second season, that's awesome. But what did you think when you saw the first season? Were you going, oh, please just give me one more episode? Or were you annoyed by it?
Please give me one more episode. I was so annoyed because there was no wrap up.
Yeah. So
we don't know. Now, unfortunately, I do know that they've survived and where they go because I've seen the trailer for season 2, before, as we record this. But I was at that point going, wait, are they just really gonna leave it like that? And it's been a while. It's been a hot minute since we got announced that they were doing a season 2.
Yeah.
It's not like a normal TV show where they announce, we're scripting for season 2 straight away. So there was potentially a point where this was not going to happen. And for me, I was like, but you're veering out of what I know. So you now have my interest.
Yeah.
You cannot do that to me. They can.
But they can.
No, but they can.
Yeah.
They did. We've closed out our synopsis for season 1 overall. That was a good detailed kind of where everybody ended and where everybody started and their overall. What did you think of the arc? Is there anything else you guys want to say about the overall arc of the first season? Anything about the storyline and how it was delivered that you wanted to talk about?
I'll take a very quick one here. So personally, I liked what they did. So this is an adaptation on, essentially, we'll go into it, but essentially 2 comic books kind of melded slightly into one. And those comic books were 10 issues combined. I think maybe 11 when you take some of the kind of side stories, 11, 12 when you take some of the side stories that were put in as well. So they took a very small kind of source material and fleshed out some of these additional areas. And what I really enjoyed was that grounding quote unquote in reality with people with superpowers, but that more grounded piece. And then these extensions, for example, best example, Hazel and Cha-Cha. They are slightly 2-dimensional characters in the comic books. And I mean 2-dimensional in the writing and not character. Actually just on a page. But what they did here with these 2 characters in the TV show was fantastic. They really made them their own. And to see what happens to Hazel at the end, to see that arc of a character growth, to see what happens to Cha-Cha, it's just, I was so happy with it. And it was one, I do hope that Cha-Cha survives because I do really enjoy the interplay between a lot of these characters.
Absolutely.
The death of the Handler for me was a very strange one, because I did feel that the actress Kate Walsh is just fantastic.
She was great. She was great.
Most people will recognize her from Grey's Anatomy, probably. She's also in a lot of other shows. She's lends her voice in a lot of shows as well.
Right.
I still, growing up in a household full of women, and Grey's Anatomy being a central pillar, similar to Sex and the City at a time, where it was on once a week and you'd tune in. I'm used to seeing her as that character, and this complete change. Obviously, an actress can act as a different person. Who knew?
Yeah, it's a shocker.
It's a shock. But seeing her like this was just fantastic.
She's really, really good. And, a real surprising, or a real kind of cool death for Hazel to actually be able to murder someone, and able to take out the handler and get the ability to time travel with his new girlfriend. You know, I think that's a cool way of doing it. So you give a little bit more, action to a character like Hazel, as you say, a little bit two-dimensional in the comic books. But John, any additional overall thoughts on the arc for season 1?
I really liked it. I thought it was really fresh. I would kind of describe it as a dysfunctional family drama that's wrapped up in saving the world from the apocalypse, but not doing a very good job of it, wrapped up in the realization that the abused child and sister is suddenly realizing her potential to cause said apocalypse, with a few red herrings thrown in to keep the guesswork going. I mean, and I think that's what I liked. I liked the fact that number 5's arc, coupled with Vanya's arc, coupled with this academy of 7, some of them dead, some of them ignored, some of them going off in their own directions, with this background of a really awful foster father in Sir Reginald. We're all trying to do things and none of them teamed up until it really mattered. And it felt really good. I really liked it. To me, it's one of those, how it feeling real and just different, but they kind of still get the job done in that at least they're still alive, even if another 7 billion people aren't. So I kind of like that. Yeah. It's crazy. So I liked it. I liked it a lot, the story, for sure. And I liked how it all came together.
Yeah.
One additional final call out for me is the music.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
I don't know how we got to this point and not mention it.
I know.
Like usually we talk about the musics, and not even just in this case the licensed music, but even the orchestral bits that they put in, so that the made for were just fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of great rock versions of Bach in there that were very cool. That Vanya plays on her rock violin, as I keep calling it when I was looking for our theme tune for the show. But even just reading the episode titles, I think the comics does this as well, with the kind of titles for each of the sections of the comic book. I think a lot of them are taken from songs.
Yeah.
And similar in this show, that a lot of the titles for the episodes are from songs. And instantly when I see episode 2's title, Run Boy Run, I'm instantly singing the song that started the episode, showing number 5 in the future, running away from everything that was going on, or jumping to the future, sorry. I think there's such a great visual style tied up in the songs that are chosen for the show. And I'm sure Gerard Way being involved in the show allowed them a bit more access to some different acts and different music that may not have been on other Netflix shows before as well. So, Netflix do have a good bit of pull with where they get their music from, as we saw from Luke Cage. But I'm sure with Gerard Way and the style of the comic, I'm sure that had a little influence on the artists that were being chosen for the music as well. So totally great call out there, Chris, with music, definitely.
For me, it was just the two standout moments is Istanbul, not Constantinople. Always gets me. But also the scene that everyone remembers from it. Specifically, I think We're Alone Now. That scene where they're all dancing in their individual rooms, and the choice to pull back out and show them together but apart, and this kind of very tender moment.
And it's almost like a dollhouse.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
exactly.
Where everybody's in their own individual room dancing by themselves, but kind of in the memory of themselves as kids, kind of thing. I think they use that again for the announcement trailer for season 2 of Umbrella Academy that had each of the actors doing it from their own homes on their own video cameras, doing it again, and piecing it all together to reveal when the show was coming back for season 2. So everybody loves that scene. It was excellent and really beautifully put together. Definitely. Yeah. Music is classic. Really, really good choices for that season 1 of the show. Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah. But gentlemen, I think it's about time now that we've discussed the season. We've discussed kind of what we liked, the overall arcs. Is there any one character you just want to do a quick call out on, a shout out on, before we move over to kind of...
Or any 7 characters of the 7 characters, don't you want to call
out? Yeah, I think, look, I've said the 4 characters I really kind of enjoyed here. And I think in their own ways, I thought this was a really good character-driven story, because being a dysfunctional family requires all those characters to sort of bounce off one another and rub one another up the wrong way. But I mean, for me, it was number 5 and Klaus, absolutely, from the Academy. I just loved these 2 characters and what they brought. I think they great depth here. And then it was Hazel and Cha-Cha as these two assassins coming after number 5, and just their kind of tit for tat. Cha-Cha was, let's get this job done. Hazel starting to have a few doubts about the benefits from the employer, and then ultimately through his love of donuts, finding the love of his life, who then persuades him to, take up bird watching instead, and to move from and hand his resignation effectively into the company. And they were equal to the 7 of the Academy. I think one of the great things I loved about them coming into the Umbrella Academy and having that fight was that they did kick ass. Despite the power of Luther, and Allison and everyone else there, they came in and they held their own. Yeah, they got a bit of a few bruises and scrapes, but I like the fact that they weren't just assassins to be killed off themselves pretty easily. I liked the challenge that number 5 brought to them, but they realized that they were pretty damn good and could do this. So
well, they did get kidnapped one of the
great characters for almost kind of secondary tier. I loved the 2 of them.
Yeah. Any other call-outs, Chris?
For me, it's just Mum and Pogo. They're supporting characters, but they make such an impact in this. As John said, it's a character-centric, character-led TV show. For me, this was just, you needed these 2 characters. You needed the mother character. Yeah. And the way they played her, and the way that they expanded upon who she is and what she does. But also the way that they expanded upon Pogo. I was... When I had first heard about this show, I was pretty sure they were not going to have the chimpanzee assistant butler. Like, I thought, no, like, we had heard they were trying to ground it a bit more in reality. They would not be going to the Eiffel Tower, which is a spaceship, and things like that. But they still kind of kept it to this character. And beyond that, they made it, I'm trying to think of I'm just pulling up the name of the actor who voiced it. It was Adam Godley. He did such an amazing bit of doing that aged man, like that Alfred character. That I've seen this all before. I've done it. I'm here to help you, Master Wayne. Like I just and it was just the way that they did pull it together. So for me, it was just, that is pour one out for homie type thing.
Because we lost Pogo at the end of the series. Yeah, absolutely. He's done by Weta Digital as well, isn't he? Same company that did Planet of the Apes, the wonderful remakes of the Planet of the Apes. So that's why it's such a good character, but it's also an amalgamation of 2 characters from the comic books. There is a right-hand man of Hargreaves in the house in the academy, and there's also Pogo, and I think the two of them have been amalgamated together to kind of lead the family as well. So that's quite an interesting touch. We also lost Mom, which we didn't even mention.
Sorry, yes.
We see her standing at the window as the academy collapses and nobody's able to go in and save her. So will we see her back in season 2?
That's my question. I do believe that they'll need a mum character in this.
Maybe, yeah.
In season 2, but at the same point, where are they in season 2? So if they are forward in time, maybe not.
Yeah.
If they're backwards in time,
almost definitely. Almost definitely everybody that died towards the end of the season will be back if they're able to jump back in time. They're probably not going to jump back to just after Mom died. They're probably going to jump back to before that, right? And save her.
Well, they have to save the world, so they need to do it. And it's like, do we go 5 minutes before? No, let's just do at least 5 hours. Give yourself a bit of breathing room.
And maybe number 5 is the guider here. So they only had 8 days to stop the apocalypse, and that clearly wasn't enough. So maybe they need 20 days to do it, jump back 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. Maybe that's the way to do it. I'm a big fan of those characters, particularly of the ones that you guys have mentioned, and definitely the 7 themselves are really well cast. Everybody has some really good moments in the series. I think that's one of the big positives I would give for the show, is that each character has a really good storyline behind them. You may not find out all about it in season 1. Even characters like Diego has a really good story underneath what's going on and why he gets to his end point, where the person who's killed the woman he loved, he doesn't kill her, even though that's been what's behind him throughout the season, has been this idea that he is a vigilante, effectively, who will use violence to kill the people that are doing bad things. But even though he realizes that's not what Detective Patch would have wanted for him to murder the person that killed her. So I like that he has an arc. Every character has an arc in the show, and there's enough there to play with for season 2 about what's going to happen with those characters. Yeah,
I think so.
Any other characters that stand out that we haven't really talked about for this section before we move on?
No, not at all.
Grant.
Yeah, no, that's about it. So let's move forward very quickly just into a very brief discussion about the differences.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned quite a lot here and there throughout this episode, but I just want to, for our listeners, if you have Comixology, if you do enjoy reading comics, and even if you don't, if you just kind of want to check out the background of what was made into season 1. Mm-hmm. So this first season is made up of very much two of the books. Mm-hmm. It's made up of Apocalypse Suite and Dallas.
Yes.
Those are the 2 first books in the series. And it takes some liberties with both of them, but very much just kind of jams together, but in a cohesive way.
Yeah, I'd say so. The books are written by Gerard Way, as Chris mentioned, and drawn by Gabriel Ba. And it feels like one of those projects that I think the intro is written by Gabriel Ba, the artist, talking about why he wanted to work with Gerard Way. And it feels like the reason why he actually did want to work with him is because he's given great license to use all the artwork. He's really able to put his stamp on each one of the characters. I think myself and Chris were talking about this at the only day that we've actually met face to face since our own little apocalypse happened back in February. We were having a bit of a chat about the comic books because it was my first time reading them as I went through the second series. And I kind of felt like, I know comics have to build up into developing their stories and developing their characters, but these people are people with superpowers. Here's their superpower, rather than these are characters, which came as a bit of a surprise to me because season 1 of the Netflix show is much more about this is the character, this is what their personality is. And they also have superpowers, but they don't use them anymore because they're no longer an academy. So I think for anybody who'd read the comics going into the show, I could see them being marginally, or maybe just surprised or disappointed by there being such a lack of superpowers in the show for a lot of the season. I think the flashback that happens with the kids, as we mentioned earlier on, in the bank, taking care of the bank robbers, is a great use of each of the powers that they have. And I think most of volume 1 of the comic book is the powers being used over and over again in flashbacks and in the storytelling. So it seemed like a real surprise that they went, we're going to use that in episode 1 and then not use it again till episode 6. Other than the time travel powers. But, Rumour, for example, is a really interesting character, to use her powers to just whisper something in an ear. We've covered covered an entire series about a character who whispers in people's ears and gets them to do things that she wants in Penny Dreadful City of Angels. That's pretty much the whole premise of that entire show. Whereas here, Rumour actually doesn't use her powers very often at all. There's one really cool short story that Gerard Way wrote about the character of Rumour, where she turns up to a dead body, which is her own body, because she effectively rumoured into existence another version of herself because she said she was at the library to her father to get out of punishment. And that willed into existence another version of herself, which is a cool way of going, she's really powerful. Like, this idea of being able to whisper into people's ears or tell them a rumour is such and such a thing actually brings it and makes it true. That suddenly makes it massively more powerful than what you think is happening on the show. So I'm sure that may be something they'll pull into season 2 or season 3 if they want to show them using their powers more.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. They have simplified the powers slightly across all of the guys. So as I said, so like Luther, they lost his body and his head is transplanted onto that of a gorilla. Allison in the comic books bends reality to her will through rumors. Whereas in this, it's more the will and the emotions of the people that she rumors. Klaus, for example, like they pretty much bring it down to he is just talks with the dead and can manifest the dead.
Yeah, he had hardly any character in the comic book, it felt like. Until
in the comic book, he's like a really strong telekinetic. Like he's no, it's not gonna ruin it. But in the comic book, he single-handedly stops a large chunk of the moon. With his own powers.
Well, that might spoil something in season 2, actually, if the moon is about to fall to Earth. But you never know.
We saw the moon falling to Earth anyway in season 1.
Yeah.
But they removed his powers. And the question is, a question I have also is, did they? That is the thing. We see that he's opening up his powers on this. So what I'm hoping is that, similar to the way that we discussed that the way that the show was built is that we as a viewer went on the journey with the actual characters in terms of learning the ins and outs of what was happening. This could also be the same with the characters' powers. Yeah. So as they are now learning and using their powers more, we may see them kind of evolve in season 2.
And I think since we're talking about the comparison to the comics, I think that's the big surprise, because in the comics they all seem fully able to use their powers.
Yes.
That's where you start off, and it does seem like the way that they've approached it as a writer and an artist together doing the books, it really feels like they're going, we can show you all these massively powerful characters, and that's their way of putting it together and not really focusing on the story of the central relationship between all these super beings trapped under one roof by a ruthless father. There's a little bit of that story. I'm very glad they changed Vanya's character for the TV show. She's so much more sympathetic. Played by Ellen Page, because she's such a great actress, probably is able to draw out your sympathy for her as a character. But in the comics, she's really petulant. She is left alone by the rest of them exactly the same way and is told that she has no powers at all. But I felt no connection with the character at all. And then when she's turned into the living violin, which is basically what she is at the end of the series, this idea that she's able to use the power of music and the power of reverberations as a really strong, powerful weapon in the comic books. What would be the way? I can't imagine how you would bring that to life. I'm glad they made it much more palatable to an average viewer of Netflix to just have it that she has a white suit rather than being painted white and having the grooves of a violin embedded on her and the strings tattooed across her body to make her look like a violin. I just was kind of thinking this looks a little bit ridiculous if you try to translate it directly. So I think they did a really good job of adapting this into something fairly different from the comic book and keeping the essence of the main characters, I suppose.
I also like the way that in the comic books they had number 5 shoot her. Like number 5 shoots her in the head to the point where he paralyzes her going forward. I like how Allison is the one doesn't shoot her in the head, like basically distracts her by shooting beside her ear and like kind of basically deafening her so she can't hear anything.
Yeah, one illusion that I think they might have put in there to that paralysis of Vanya. There is a moment in the show where, in the last episode, where you have Luther, the strongest one of all of them, hugging her really tightly, effectively. And I was expecting, this is the moment where he breaks her back. It was kind of what this is the moment where he stops her powers because she's now crippled. But you're right. There is also that touch of the gun. So again, involving more of the characters and making it a better overall storyline, I think, what they've done in the TV show. So I am enjoying the comics. I'm still going to finish them off, but I definitely say if you haven't read them yet, have a look at them, but it's not the same as the show. The show is...
No, sorry. It's, if you like the characters, if you like the characters, you'll see them in a different light.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's a different take. This is essentially like, for our Marvel fans, this is Marvel 616 universe and the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
They're slightly different takes on the characters that you kind of enjoy.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, it'd be interesting to see what they do with, if they pull of any of the Hotel Oblivion, which is the third graphic novel, which is 11 issues pulled into one, I believe. Whether they take any of that into season 2. And the final bit I just am curious is in the graphic novel Dallas, number 5 goes back to save JFK.
Yeah.
In this TV show, it implies that he killed JFK.
It implies that he didn't stop the death, wasn't it? That he jumped before fulfilling his mission on the grassy knoll of killing the person that was killing JFK. Yeah. And that's a great touch in there, because that's one of those things where it's a great part of all of our collective mythos. Who was it that killed JFK kind of thing? So, was it really, Lee Harvey Oswald, or was it the person on the grassy knoll because they found a place? So 5 was the one that was sitting on the grassy knoll and jumped out before anybody caught him. So, and disappeared into time. I know you haven't read the comic books, John, so I know you don't have much to contribute to this section.
No,
let's go on.
sadly not, but it's interesting. I might dip into them as we have them on Comixology.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's interesting that you're kind of saying maybe actually the TV show has brought some added dimensions to the story that of the comic, which is great, because I think we discussed this with the Marvel Netflix stuff, where a lot of back and forth between the comics being inspiration for what's put on the screen, but it's nice when they both kind of work in harmony, and there's a bit of back and forth. So this adding to it sounds really interesting.
Netflix certainly added a lot to the characters, definitely. Yeah.
So, gentlemen, we're coming close to the end of our podcast. I very quickly wanted to just discuss season 2 potentials. I have a few here, but before I jump into it, would you guys have what would you want to see in season 2? Taking into account, both of you have watched the trailer?
I haven't seen the trailer.
Great.
Genuinely, I haven't watched the trailer for season 2. I didn't actually want to watch the trailer because we have been lucky enough. Our friends over on Netflix have given us season 2 to watch. So I've said I'm going to hold myself off watching it, because we are lucky enough to be able to watch it directly after we record this podcast on season 1. So I've been holding off watching it. Didn't want to spoil myself, and also didn't want to spoil anything about season 2. If we were doing our speculation, I wanted to keep it to that point where we do our wonderful speculation that never comes true because we're terrible at speculation. So that's why I resisted watching the trailer.
Well, you'll be glad to know there's not too much given away. I watched the trailer because this is something, it's one that is close to me. I was like, yay, and we hadn't been told yet whether we'd be getting advanced copies, so I needed my fix. So I'm going to be, I'll be very careful in what I say and what I don't say. But then, on your case, what do you hope to see in season 2?
I think for me, I definitely, I want to see more of the dysfunctional family, even if it's that they're getting better, that, that stuff lives long in the memory. So it's a long, difficult process. I want to see them argue, be sort of, I kind of liked that. I liked how they work together, but not as one in a sense. I thought that was really good. I'm absolutely intrigued to know what Vanya will do when she wakes up. Because, at the end of the day, she was fairly intent on what she was doing, and I just want to, what is the fallout of that with her siblings?
Yeah.
It's a really good cliffhanger to that first season, and all they've done is transfer the problem somewhere else with the time travel. So will she come around to forgiving them, or is this where she becomes really just the problem child? And it is kind of a big bad in a sense. This is their, I suppose, Hydra. So I'm really interested on that. I don't know, because I have no idea where that's going to go, whether they're going to continue to maybe tackle the apocalypse question with the company, sort of chasing them down. And that I wouldn't mind, because I just really enjoyed season 1, but obviously they're going to develop, it further. So yeah, I think whether we delve a bit more into Reginald's, as I say, there was that slightly strange scene with the dying lady, presumably his wife, and the violin that then Vanya was using, and all these rockets leaving the planet that they were on. So, what planet was that? The violin, certainly that's the focus for Vanya's energy. So did this woman that Reginald Hargreaves, was it his wife, his mother, a friend, his lover? Was she similarly blessed with this kind of power? And then just to see, are all the others actually blessed with as powerful a power as Vanya? It's just that they haven't actually known how to use it properly, like we saw with Klaus. Klaus was just getting to grips there with how he could use his power to commune with the dead really well, which was really cool. So there's tons here, and will Hazel live happily ever after in a lakeside cabin being fed donuts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner by Agnes? Probably not.
Don't imagine that's what's going to happen in the next season. I'm really hopeful that they resolve this particular apocalypse question. It's a kind of a running gag in the comics anyway, that they fix the apocalypse all the time. That's what they do. It's what happens in every superhero comic. It's basically, there's a coming apocalypse, it's solved and fixed, and then they move on to the next apocalypse. So I kind of want them to do that in the opening couple of episodes. I think the challenge that they could hit is if they get into that Terminator time travel loop thing where they always have to prevent this particular apocalypse from happening. That could get kind of boring, which is exactly what happened to the Terminator franchise, which was probably my favorite science fiction franchise, but it just kept going back to the same points over and over again to solve the same exact apocalypse. So they need to fix it. I hope it's going to happen in the first 2 episodes, and then something else is going to rise out of that to lead us into a bigger season 2. But particularly what I'm looking forward to is seeing more of Ben and more of Klaus. What effect has this whole travel back to Vietnam, what's it had on Klaus? Will he be clean for the second season? Or will his mouth be just as dirty as it was in the first season? So yes. So that's my little bits that I'm looking forward to for season 2. Chris.
Excellent. I'm right there with you on all those points. I'll kind of just give you my ones, which is, will number 5 get a name by the end of the season? That would be a nice ending.
Yeah, it is a really interesting little thing that's going on throughout the season, that everybody else has a name, but it was that Hargreaves refused to call anybody by their name. And their mother gave each one of them a name, and that's what happened. But he refused to call them by it. So 5 has never had a name. He's always just gone by 5 the whole time. But remember, he's almost 60 now, so going by the name 5 for 60 years, will he be willing to change it from 5?
That's a question. Yeah. I'm right with you on the powers. For me, I want to see the evolution of their powers. And also on powers, Allison's throat was cut.
Yes, it was.
In season 1.
That's true.
How can a person with potentially no voice tell a rumour?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's one that's going to be interesting.
She's
and then
writing on her notepad, isn't she?
At the moment,
Yeah, at the end of the season, she's writing on a notepad. So maybe she becomes a newspaper reporter telling rumours that aren't actually true to the world, convincing them that they...
She is the origin of fake news.
That's her new name. That's her real superhero name is Fake News.
Welcome to TV Podcast Industry, where we take topical comments and make light of them. The big one for me is Hargreaves. And is he an alien? Is he not an alien? What is the story there? That was in the comic books, it is quite implied that he is an alien. But this makes, like, the fact it's kind of again implied here, where you see spaceships taking off. But it's never directly stated. I don't want that to be a throwaway scene. I think it needs to have been in there for a reason.
Absolutely.
There's this great tinfoil hat theory where, do you remember just as he's looking out the window, he opens the jar and these little fireflies come out?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
And someone went in and counted, and apparently there's 43.
Well, there you go. That would be, okay.
Yeah. So apparently these little fireflies may be responsible, or similar fireflies in a jar, were responsible for the superpowers. So he is a time-traveling alien who is aware of the coming apocalypse, and it was his job to see the superpowers to build an Avengers in it. And that's interesting to see. Will they explain that?
Yeah.
Will they look into that? What's it going to be?
All makes a lot of sense. If you're able to count 43 fireflies on your TV screen, you have ultra high definition screen without a doubt, and a lot of time on your hands. But it would make total sense if there's 43 of them on there. That's absolutely what caused the birth of the 43 children. That's one of the things that I would like to see in season 2. We had Leopold here, a kid born on the same day, natural birth, but wasn't powered at all. Didn't come from this group of 43 kids, but potentially there are a massive amount of stories with 36 other children out there around the world, all born on the same day, all possibly with superpowers or not. So intriguing whether they'll lean into that in season 2, the discovery of who all those other children were.
But are they all dead now?
Well, we don't know. They are dead definitely at the end of the series, because everybody on Earth is dead, but we know they time jumped. So
at least to that point.
Yeah. So hopefully, we'll get some revelations as to who those other kids might have been.
Exactly.
Because that feels like the main story. Like, that's the opening of our synopsis that was taken from the back of the comic book, and it's the voiceover at the beginning of the first season of Netflix. 43 children were born, only 7 of them were found. And the instant question that pops into your head is, what happened to all the rest of them? You know? Where are they? So.
Well, that's one I really hope for too. That's my, because it's kind of explored in the comics, kind of not. So for me, if they really want to double down that season 2 is because yes, you have the two creators are kind of helping with this show. So I can very much see them going, well, look, we have this thing, we'll probably explore it in the comics, but we're going to give it to you. So go in and take this, and giving you that. Do you know what? Here's number 9. It'll be very interesting to see. So, gentlemen, we've come to the end of our season 1 recap. We have spoken about what we want in season 2. We are a mere 2 weeks away from watching and finding out what actually happens in season 2. But that is still so far away. So, for now, I do believe it is time for us to end and mainly just ask our fellow Academy alumni to send in your thoughts. What are you hoping to see in season 2? You can send it to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or, as I said earlier, join us over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, and tell us, what do you want to see in season 2? Who do you want to see more of? Who do you want to see less of? Will Vanya become a big white violin?
I hope not.
Who knows? Will you get even more tentacle porn from Ben? Again, who knows? Will they save the world, or will there be another apocalypse? Who knows?
Or will it be 10 episodes leading to the same apocalypse? That's the one thing that keeps going through my head. I'm going, oh, please don't do the same. Don't do 10
I
episodes
like
to the
that
same
idea.
apocalypse.
I
They
like
keep running
that
through the
idea.
same thing. Yeah, maybe. Let's see.
Well, so we now know which of you like Sarah O'Connor Chronicles and which you didn't
I
like.
love
the
Sarah Connor Chronicles. I loved it. But
And the Tom Cruise
Live, Die, Repeat.
Live, Die, Repeat.
Yeah.
Now, that's a good one. That's
Yeah.
a different take. But when you start getting into Terminator Genesis, Dark Fate, what was the latest one?
That was Dark Fate. Yeah.
Okay. Which was the other terrible
Salvation.
one?
Yeah, Salvation.
That's there we go, yeah.
And Terminator 3.
That's where we start running into a time traveling problem.
Absolutely.
But we're not here to talk about Terminator, are we? No. One thing I did want to say is if you want to hear your dulcet tones giving us your thoughts on this season 1 or any of your thoughts on season 2, you can record a clip of yourself on your phone and email it to us, or you can go to our website at tvpodcastindustry.com and record up to 90 seconds of your thoughts each week as we record, and we'll make sure it's there. But also you can leave it in the spoiler post that we will be putting up for each set of episodes that we'll be recording. We'd love to hear from all of our fellow Academy alumni. You don't want to hear me. Listen, come on. You've heard enough of me. You've heard enough of John and Derek. We want to hear you. As we move into our 503rd episode, we just want to say thank you for joining us. We hope you say subscribe to the podcast. And if you enjoy what you hear, why not share it with your friends? Why not talk to your mother, your father, your chimpanzee, your robotic mother even, your robotic grandmother? Who knows? Just share the podcast with all of them, because sharing the podcast is sharing the love. But if you want to be extra special to us, why not head on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where just for $1, €1, a dime, $1, whatever your currency you are currently using, you can help us keep the lights on and the mics on.
Well, not a dime. That's really lovely if you would like to donate a dime to us, but you can't do that on Patreon. It's the minimum of $1. So,
okay.
But thanks very much to all of our supporters over on Patreon. Again, we'll hopefully be releasing our Umbrella Academy episodes earlier over on Patreon. If you follow us over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industry, support us for any amount over there. You'll get access to the episodes before they're available on our main feed on tvpodcastindustries.com. Thank you so much for joining us for this wrap up of Umbrella Academy Season 1. I wish we'd done this last year, that we'd done each of the episodes as it came out, but that's fine. I think we did a pretty comprehensive look back at the first season this time.
Yes, but you've got a comprehensive look, an in-depth look here in this episode. So, ta-ra for now. We'll return on July 31st with our discussion of episode 1 of the Umbrella Academy Season 2. We'll discuss episodes 1, and then over the weekend, we'll discuss episodes 2 and 3. So that first weekend, you're going to get 2 bonus episodes, and then 3 episodes per week until the end of August, where, gentlemen, drum roll, we're going to get Stormfront, we're going to get Homelander. Yes, we'll be back covering The Boys. We, Huey and I, and if you missed it, don't worry, I won't be doing accents in Umbrella Academy Season 2, that I'm aware of, but I will be doing a terrible Scottish accent, you know. When we cover The Boys Season 2.
Yay! More things for me to edit out. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much, fellow Brolly Dollies, for joining us. It's a pleasure speaking with you. Can't wait to have you on board, looking at Season 2 of the Umbrella Academy. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and importantly, in this weather, keep dry.
Nice.
It's pouring out there, and you'll definitely need an umbrella. Bye.
Bye.
Ella.
Ella.
Bye.
Bye. Number 5. Left before they all got names, he was testing his teleportation powers and got stuck in the future after the world ended.
Just, I think your intonation on that was...
What?
Number 5, left before. It sounded like he was left behind before he left before. Yeah.
I think I was fine, but nonetheless, let's go. I'm an artist.
I'll fix it in post.
Diva.
All right, script editor, Jeebus. Now I know what good old Judi Dench feels like.
Can we just do one more take on that, John? You were perfect first time, but just for quality.
But yes, as we move into our 502nd episode, thank you so much. Okay, this is our 501.
No, this is our 502.
What was 5? Oh, the page out full.
Sorry.
See, come on, that's fine, but that wasn't really my fault. We're recording out of order.
Look,
here.
this is time traveling with the Umbrella Academy, so it's the one we're recording in the future is our next episode.